Welcome back to Rim Country Forum. Switching gears in our second half hour here and talking with the chairman of the Gila County Republican Party, Gary Morris, also their first vice chairman, Andy McKinney.
Well, good morning.
Yeah, it's like deja vu all over again.
And he's a double hatter.
Yeah, that's right. Taking off his movie guy hat and putting on his Trump hat here, Andy McKinney. Now, in looking through our talking notes for today's edition, I'm told that this is a special edition titled Trump Leads, Democrats Complain and Resist.
That's true.
That pretty much wraps it all up, right?
That's pretty much exactly what's happening. So, a special invitation to Democrats in all listening land. Call in. Tell us why you think Trump isn't doing a good job with the pandemic.
You know, it's certainly the politics when it comes to Trump. I mean, to begin with, he was overreacting, and there's no need to shut down all the travel and blah blah blah. And then it was he didn't react quick enough, and I don't think the guy could do anything and get a compliment.
Yeah, when it's proven he was right, they find something else to complain about.
Right.
That's the title.
Right. Exactly. It's all the Russians' fault.
Yeah.
Now, with as it pertains to that. I guess the big thing right now is here in Arizona is Governor Ducey's decision to extend the shelter-in-place order. Some people saying it's a good idea, other people saying it's a terrible idea. And I noticed I was mentioning to Andy earlier, I noticed on the AP Wire feed this morning that there's a number of Republicans in the state that are going to be speaking out against Ducey's decision today. So it looks like it's not all coming from the left as far as their complaints.
Yeah, one of the problems, as far as I'm concerned here, about the extension, it's another 2 weeks, is it treats the entire state as if it were a single entity, and there's a tremendous difference between the needs of, for instance, Gila County, mm-hmm. That we're responsible for, and Maricopa County, which is a much bigger deal down there than it is up here. There have already been 2 demonstrations down at the Capitol urging the governor to open things up. And even the legislature wants the governor to open things up. Things have not quite gotten as far as they have up in Michigan, where not only did they have a demonstration at the Capitol, but the demonstrators came armed. As is our right to keep and bear arms, but that puts a different stripe on things. It makes it a lot more difficult for the authorities to bully people. So far that has not happened yet in Arizona, and I hope it doesn't. But the governor needs to amend his thinking on this subject. When a person has been out of work for a couple of months and his money has gone down the rat hole, there's a sense of desperation that kind of creeps into the collective psyche, and that's not good for any of us. We need to get back to work. But there are 3 modes now that have been tried. In some countries, they just haven't done anything. You get off into some place like Kazakhstan or out in that direction.
Any of the stands.
Well, basically any of the stands, and they just haven't done anything at all. And of course, in America, there's no reportage about what's going on in places like that, so we don't really know. And then there's the communist Chinese model, which we've kind of been following here with some amendments, and that is to shut everything down. And this is the first time in history, Randy, and people in Radio Land, it's the first time in history where in a contagion sort of a situation that we've locked up healthy people. Mm-hmm. Traditionally, we find the people that are ailing and separate them from the bulk of society. But this is the first time we've ever isolated healthy people, and it seems wrong-headed to me. Of course, it's easier after we've been doing this for 2.5 months to poke at the the flaws.
Hindsight,
Pretty darn good, that
Yeah.
hindsight is. But the third thing, and this seems to be more reasonable to me, if we have social distancing, we keep our faces covered. I've washed my hands more this week probably than I have done in a long time in the past. We have the testing is coming on board, just a huge tsunami of testing, and finding the sick people and isolating them where it's necessary. That seems to be the way to go, and I'm not having much success in convincing the governor. Have we lost our?
I don't. We're going to find out a little bit about some of President Trump's successes in combating COVID-19 here in just a moment, but we do have a caller on the line, so let's go to the phones. Hi, you're on Rim Country Forum. Good morning. Hi there.
With what Amy talked about, maybe next time this happens, we can do the Swedish model. Question is, actually for a little clarification, what is the 8th of May criteria for opening up business? Anybody know?
It's freelancing. That's the best I can say. Again, everybody's pretty disappointed in the governor's decision, and it's kind of remarkable because had this been an election year, and he'd been up for re-election in November, what happened with this decision probably caused him to lose the election. And he's got to consider that downstream he's going to be running for other offices, so now he has a record of not complying with the populist wishes.
Well, and
And I think that's one of the tough parts, is there hasn't been a lot of clarity or clear definition as to how some of this is supposed to play out. Restaurants can open, but restaurants with bars can't, and I mean, there's I don't know, it's just difficult right
yeah,
now.
and the problem for me is that businesses like Terry's, I would open today. It wouldn't cause no danger to the public whatsoever, and providing that we do the things that we're doing anyway, where, the social distancing, the masking, the frequent washing, not having too many people in a store at the same time. All of that is perfectly reasonable, and there's no reason why we can't put that in effect immediately across the board. I was watching broadcast from Europe, and it's just several days ago, and they had, in the Czech Republic, they had customers and practitioners with masks doing beauty salon stuff. It's kind of funny to see a customer in a salon getting her hair washed by a practitioner. Well, both of them are masked, but that's what they're doing in the Czech Republic, and I'm hard pressed to think that that's the wrong thing to do.
Well, I'm kind of curious, especially with, again, the president of the Gila County, or chairman of the Gila County Republican Party, Gary Morris. You've got a background as a first responder, so you have an interesting additional perspective on this. How do you see President Trump's successes when it comes to combating this COVID-19 thing? I mean, how are you viewing this?
Well, again, as somewhat of a professional, and you've been out on major disasters around the world as well, we haven't seen this kind of industrial effort to solve a major pandemic since World War II.
Right.
I mean, mobilizing industry to stop manufacturing cars to produce ventilators and have those ventilators out in a couple of weeks. It's just an amazing feat of the people of this country.
Sure.
But Democrats continue to complain, and they offer challenges. So there's a few complaints that they have, and one of them was that claimed that Trump was slow in responding to the pandemic, for example. But before we get into those details, we have to remember, set the baseline, that in April 2009, when the swine flu was first detected in California, President Trump waited until October.
Obama.
I'm sorry, Obama waited till October
Trying to
to
conjure some
declare
lightning
a
here this morning.
disaster. And that resulted in a lot of Americans losing their lives. But for the record, on January 11th, the first case was reported in Washington State. At the end of the month, the first case in Arizona was reported with an ASU student over at the campus. On January 31st, the president declared a national health emergency. That's pretty quick. We only had a couple cases in Washington State at the time. That included a travel ban, but the Democrats complained that it was racist to do that. On March 13th, 30 days after the first case was detected, he declared a national emergency. And that authorized an awful lot of money to go into the effort. And the second declaration also severely restricted travel from Europe.
Mhm.
And the Democrats continued to argue throughout that 30-day period that Trump was wrong, didn't need the travel bans, etc. We now know that those two bans substantially reduced the number of infections in the country and saved probably thousands of lives. Yet Democrats still complain.
Yeah, as I recall, Governor Cuomo of New York was hopping mad when they cut off the air travel to Europe. And now he's hopping mad. He's always hopping mad, isn't he?
Yeah, and now the issue with New York is traced directly back to travel from Italy into New York. So not much of a foundation for that complaint.
All right, we have another caller on the line, 16 minutes in front of 10 o'clock. Hi, you're on Rim Country Forum. Good morning.
Your guest, he denoted himself in the Payson area as somewhat of a professional, means he represents some people. I do not represent anybody, but I disagree with him in two particular areas, if I may.
Okay.
Area is, he denotes the mask and washing our hands might be the miracle cure. Well, I've been out
certainly nobody said that.
masks at the radio station and picked mine up. And they're very well done for the little bit I know about them. And the ladies that put them together, bless their hearts. But I unfortunately, asked you where you would have got a mask that fits you so well, that has portholes in it, so air can only travel one way. She said, well, sir, I just got back to the United Arab Republic, and I bought these there. Because sometimes we think all these foreign countries are behind time. Well, China and these other countries were wearing masks, 90% of the people, when there wasn't 1% of us Americans wearing.
Right, so,
That's kind of true. If you go to Japan, for example, a pretty dense population, rather than shutting everything down, they just implemented the social distancing as best they can in a pretty dense population. But everybody was wearing masks, very early into the pandemic, and washing hands multiple times a day. And they have less incidents per population than we do in this country. So masks do work when they're properly used.
and if you've been to Beijing, China, you have to wear a mask just to be able to breathe the air there, because it's nasty. But interesting point. So,
And for a long time in major Asian cities in particular, it's been the social custom to, if you have the sniffles, you wear a mask. And so even in ordinary times, you'll see people in Tokyo that are wearing masks.
okay, so Andy, while, we talked a little bit about, while Trump is busy doing different things, the Democrats are complaining. So what were the Democrats doing when Trump declared a national health emergency back on January 31st?
Impeach, 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 impeach. So that, they were busy doing that. Of course, when Trump put the travel ban in, they not only attacked him personally in really harsh and shameful ways, they tried to pass a bill to block the travel ban to China. When this is unbelievable. 2 or 3 weeks into the emergency, Nancy Pelosi was urging people to go down to Chinatown and participate in activities down there. Amazing stuff. Mayor de Blasio, who's a substandard human being as far as I'm concerned, Mayor de Blasio was urging people to go out to dinner to keep the restaurant industry in New York going. This is the middle of March. The rest of the country is on the verge of shutting down. It's just amazing stuff.
And New York has really been hit hard by this too.
Well, over half of the people who have gotten sick and the people who have died from the sickness are in the greater New York area. So this is very, very serious for those guys, and de Blasio certainly didn't help. And if you remember, Como was upset because they cut off the air travel to Europe, particularly to Italy. During the Obama-Biden administration, the national stockpiles of emergency equipment were depleted during the swine flu epidemic. And guess what? They never bothered to fill them up again. How about that?
They didn't replenish the
They
stock.
didn't replenish the stockpiles. Just unbelievable sloth and incompetence. And now they're yelling at Trump because there aren't enough masks, or not currently, but early on. When Como claimed he needed 50,000, or when planners told Como that they needed 50,000 or 15,000 ventilators for New York State to be in their stockpile. Guess how many he bought?
I'm afraid to ask.
Zip.
None.
None.
Wow.
Not. He was told by his healthcare experts that we really ought to do this. And did he do it? Nope. Not a bit. Not a bit. So he very publicly complained about Trump not giving him enough ventilators. Shame on him, shame on him. De Blasio, the substandard human in governing New York City, actually had a stash of 500 ventilators and he auctioned them off. Como demanded that 30,000 ventilators Trump supply him with, but they only ended up using 5,000. How about that? You know, Randy, one of the things that's wonderful about America is how innovative our private sector is. And very early on in the ventilator saga, some bright private sector people devised a way that very cheaply could turn 5,000 ventilators into 10,000 ventilators by just putting a simple Y junction in the tubes, and you double, all of a sudden overnight, for like $3, you have doubled the number of ventilators that you have. That's the American entrepreneur effort at work. Trump built a 3,000-bed hospital in Javits Center in New York City, and he also sent a hospital ship to New York City. Neither one of these emergency measures were very heavily utilized, and both of them have been dismantled now. Or not, the ship has sailed away, but the Javits Center has been dismantled.
All right, we have to take a quick break and we're going to come back and talk more. If you just tuned in, we're talking with the chairman of the Gila County Republican Party, Gary Morris, also Vice Chairman Andy McKinney, and taking calls from you at 474-2427. So we're going to find out next. The Democrats claim President Trump fails to use science to make decisions. Is that true? Well, we'll find out more right after this.
Your will.
Rim Country Forum. It is 6.5 minutes in front of 10 o'clock, 74 degrees, and been talking this morning with Gary Morris and Andy McKinney from the Gila County Republican Party. And Gary, one of the things, you know, the Democrats, one of the big complaints that I think we all heard if we were watching the news much, was that they were claiming President Trump failed to use science to make his decisions. He's just kind of delirious, and maybe we should all inject Clorox into our veins or some crazy cool thing like that.
And probably because he referred to the Bible in the past, he and the vice president. So,
There you go.
again, that's the claim, and so here are the facts. as you might have noted, for the last 6 weeks or so, since the start of the daily briefings, there's a gentleman by the name of Dr. Anthony Fauci and Deborah Burke. They are specialists in epidemiology. They have international reputations, and Trump calls them up to the podium at just about every one of those news conferences, and those two experts and authorities take questions in regards to the science as it applied to their recommendations in regards to the pandemic. So, I mean, it's a free-for-all. The media has been asking these experts questions for half an hour more most days, and where the Democrats come to believe that he's not using science is just amazing. And the reason why is, again, every time Trump proves something is right, it doesn't fit their narrative of destroying Trump, so they find something else to argue about. And their old adage is, if you tell a lie often enough, people begin to believe it. So they've now got people in the populace that believe that Trump is not using science, when in fact he did from the beginning, and he still uses those experts.
You know, it would seem that the left has been going to any extreme to try to cast any kind of negative light on anything that President Trump does. And there are some that I think want to ask the question, are Democrats willing to let you die in order to oppose President Trump?
Well, maybe not that far, but their actions are certainly not benefiting the average Joe out here in the world. They've twice delayed, for political reasons, to get money for the Kennedy Center. That's stripping money from all you out there in listening land, potential money coming to you. They twice delayed that, and it only hurts the public. There's constant arguing about lack of facts, lack of science, etc. is also hurting the effort to benefit the average Joe out there in listening land.
All right, and Andy, one of the things too, Democrats have been claiming that President Trump has blood on his hands for advocating the use of the drug hydroxychloroquine.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, really.
Because you used it.
Yeah, there you go. It
yeah.
fights malaria. It should fight everything, right?
Yeah, this is a drug that has been used in the United States for something like 70 years now, so
Right.
it has a very, very long history. It's very well known. It's primarily, as you know, Randy, is used to combat malaria. However, it has been shown in some cases to be helpful for this coronavirus as well. In one case, there was 1,200 patients in the ICU. They were given that in the intensive care unit that people are seriously ill. Okay, 96% of the people that were in the intensive care unit that were given this drug in a 1,200 person test case survived. The ordinary, in the ordinary course of things, you would expect about 30% of the people in the ICU would succumb. So there's obviously it's been beneficial in some cases. They say that it's beneficial the earlier that we give it to. However, when a Democrat House of Representative person in Michigan tried this drug, was successful, was benefited by it, and mentioned that thank you, President Trump, for allowing us to use it. The Democrat Party censored her for telling the truth. That's what they're all
All
about.
right, so we're just about out of time, 30 seconds left here, Gary. So is anything good coming from this pandemic and the response to it?
I guess if everybody looks at the worldwide government-run health system around the world, what you find is this epidemic demonstrated that the United States private enterprise medical health care is the best in the world.
I mean, responding in some significant ways.
No other country can match what we've been able to do.
All right, and unfortunately, that's all the time we have this morning for Rim Country Forum. It's been brought to you by the good folks at Holiday Cruises and Tours, Choice Auto and Truck, Anytime Fitness, Dan Good Flooring, Hospitality Wireless, Sunshine Cleaning and Restoration, and the Dana Law Group. You're listening to Rim Country Radio, KMOG Payson, coming up on 10 o'clock, 74 degrees. A quick look at your top of the hour news headlines, that 7-day weather forecast just around the corner, as is Suzanne Michaels with the Diner.